UFC 303 Pereira versus Prochazka is happening this weekend, and I'm going to go through the entire main card and some of the prelim cards. Starting off, Payton Talbott versus Yanis Ghemmouri. Payton Talbott is one of my favorite prospects to watch right now. He is so exciting. His striking is so good. He just defeated Cameron Simon the last time he fought, and it was like a really brutal knockout, especially in the first round. He pretty much is a top 5 level fighter, and he should be fighting higher, but I don't know why they're giving him Yanis Ghemmouri. I don't even know who this guy is. Last time I checked, this guy haven't won a single fight in the UFC. So I'm gonna go with Payton Talbott here. I'm gonna go with him knockout in the first round. I don't even think he's gonna survive the second round. We move on from Zesty O'Malley. So I'm gonna talk about these 3 cards because I don't really want to go one by them because they're kind of irrelevant. I have respect for Swanson, but the other ones are just, I don't really think they're that interesting. Charles Jourdain versus Silva. So Charles Jourdain lost his last fight to Sean Woodson via a split decision, and Silva won his UFC debut in the first round knockout. I'm gonna go with Charles Jourdain on this one because Charles Jourdain should have won. He just lost to Sean Woodson because Sean Woodson is a weight bully. You're 6 foot and you're fighting at 145 pounds. That's like absolutely ridiculous. Swanson versus Fili. I'm gonna go with Fili here. I think Swanson is 1 foot out of the door, and I think he is going to retire soon. So let's hope Fili by decision, or honestly, I see decision and knockout. Pyfer versus the Canadian Marc-Andre Barriault, if that's how you say his name. I'm like Canadian, I don't even know how to say his name. I'm gonna go with Pyfer here. Pyfer is overall pretty good. He lost to Jack Hermanson, but at the same time, I didn't really expect him to win. He has that salty attitude, so if he loses his last fight, he's probably gonna be way more salty this fight, and he's gonna really go for the knockout. If he doesn't get knocked out, I could see him getting knocked out too. This is gonna be a closer fight than the odds showing here, so I'm still gonna go with Pyfer. We move on to Machado Garry versus Michael Venom Page. I'm gonna go with Garry right here. No, I'm just kidding. I think I'm gonna go with Michael Venom Page on this one. I think Garry has to fight with distance. We've seen in Jeff Neal's fight, he doesn't really want to scramble. He's not really that guy when it just comes down to bite your mouth guard and just really trade punch for punch. Michael is that guy. MVP is that guy. He's that guy that will blitz in front of you and just hit you with the right hand, like how he did to Kevin Holland. And Garry, he just controls distance. He's kind of like a welterweight version of Israel Adesanya, where he kind of just pokes you, he pin pokes you, and then when you're close to him, he clinch and he tries to run away. I got 5-inch reach advantage here for Michael Venom Page. I know Michael Venom Page is kind of old and Garry's upcoming prospect, and he's supposed to be on his quote-unquote peak, which just doesn't really make any sense because I don't really know how are you on your peak of your prime if you're just eating vegetable only, like you're literally a vegan. So I'm gonna go with MVP here. I think Garry is getting exposed. He could have already gotten exposed by Jeff Neal, but Jeff Neal just never shows up to fight like in shape. So I'm gonna go with MVP here by second round knockout. I think Garry is gonna be winning the majority of the fight just because he's a point fighter. MVP goes for the KO, Garry goes for the decision, just like how he does at home. The problem with Jeff Neal though, and Garry, they're just the complete opposite. Garry doesn't eat any protein. Jeff Neal eats too much protein. But anyways, I just can't wait for MVP to hit him with the right hand, stumbles him. There's no way you eat plants only and you have a chin. I just don't believe that. This guy got dropped by the Chinese guy Song Kenan in one punch. Imagine what Michael Page is gonna do to you. He's gonna hit you, is gonna stand in front of you, and he's gonna like start just celebrating, and he's gonna start taunting you. I just don't think someone like Garry can handle this. If it's going to be a knockout, it's definitely going towards MVP, and if it's going towards a decision, 70 out of 100% of the time, it'll go towards Garry. but I see a knockout more than a decision since both are strikers. Michael Venom Page just have so much more experience in terms of range and pinpoint fighting. We move on. Mayra Bueno Silva versus Macy Chiasson. They're both 10-3. Macy Chiasson's last fight might have been Irene Aldana, which is a year ago. If it's not that, then she probably won a fight in the meanwhile on some fight night cards. And Mayra got fraud checked so hard by Raquel Pennington. She has 0 striking. She only has that one like ninja dart stroke. That's the only thing she has. Her striking is so bad. I think I fell asleep, and when I woke up, it was the 3rd round of the Strickland fight. So thanks, Mayra, you're so good. I knew she wasn't gonna finish Raquel Pennington in the 2nd round. I knew it was over when she poured water on her head and screamed, "Let's go!" instead of listening to her coach. Macy Chiasson is just a more disciplined fighter here and is so much huger, 5'11". I got Macy Chiasson on this one. We move on to Anthony Smith versus Roman Dolidze, and Anthony Smith is the self-proclaimed greatest fighter of all time, quote-unquote, on paper. So, I want to go with Roman on this one, because Roman was a pretty high-ranked middleweight, but I'm gonna go with Anthony Smith on this one. I hate to say this, because I think Anthony Smith absolutely doesn't know how to fight. He looks like a pig every time he fights. He gets absolutely destroyed by the top fighter, but the thing is, he does know how to fight. He's pretty experienced at it, and he's pretty good at it. He's just not the top. He's an average fighter. He's good at average. He's good at being average at fighting. And I think Roman Dolidze is not really that good compared to Anthony Smith's experience. He doesn't even have a knockout in, like... The only knockout Roman Dolidze have is Jack Hermanson. And that's pretty much it. And that wasn't even a knockout by Jack Hermanson. It was like he sit on Jack Hermanson's back and he just pounded him until the ref said, okay, that's enough. Who else did Roman knock out? Phil Hawes? Doesn't Phil Hawes literally have no chin? I'm going with Anthony Smith on this one. I think Anthony Smith is pretty bad, but he looked pretty good with Vitor Petrino. I hate to say it. I said Vitor Petrino was going to finish Anthony Smith in 32nd, and that was, oh boy, that was so wrong. But he looked pretty good with Vitor, even though Vitor's IQ went missing that day. It just wasn't there. And he took a short notice to Khalil Roundtree, which was kind of respectful. And he looked pretty good with Khalil until he got knocked out. I'm gonna just say it like that. He looked pretty good with Khalil, but he just did no damage. And I'm gonna go with Anthony Smith's submission here. We move on to Brian Ortega versus Diego Lopes. Diego Lopes is coming off a hot streak after losing to Movsar Evloev, and Brian Ortega won against Yair Rodriguez because Yair has absolute 0 ground game. Talking about Pereira having no ground game, you guys should really look at Yair, because this guy have absolute no wrist control. This guy has absolutely no strength to get up, no skill, no any jiu-jitsu skill. He has like a choke, that's it. I'm starting to think that if Yair did not submit Josh Emmett, he might actually just get pinned to the ground for 5 rounds and lose that interim featherweight belt. He might not have even won if he just didn't submit Josh Emmett. This guy has no way to get up, so that's why I think Brian Ortega is just gifted with a free win, even though he twisted his ankle. I think Brian Ortega got really lucky that he twisted his ankle against Yair out of all people that can't really wrestle. That was like a gifted win for Brian Ortega, but he's been in the game for a long time, and I look at Diego Lopes as the new era, new generation version of Brian Ortega, and I'm gonna go with Diego Lopes here. I think Lopes have the chance to be a champ, and I think Lopes, if not be a champ, he can be like at least in the title shot, and UFC's really pushing him, and he can do what Yair did to Brian Ortega in the first 30 seconds, but the difference is his ground game is really good. If you almost submitted a Dagestan wrestler in your first fight in the UFC on a short notice, I don't care if you lost. you're like really good. I'm gonna go with Diego Lopes also because I'm one of the first fans to go up to him in the Vancouver fight. I think it was UFC 296. It was the one with Charles Oliveira and Dariush. And I didn't even know his name. I just said good fight last fight.
Oh, good fight last fight.
I was gonna be so embarrassed because I didn't even know his name. He could have just ignored me, but he turned around to me and he said, "Thank you." Look at me straight in the eye to eye, locking. That was my first UFC experience, and he was the first UFC fighter I saw. Dude, I love Diego Lopes, dude. I'm literally his first fan. I have evidence. I would literally put the video in this video. I have the evidence that I'm his first fan, and he definitely noticed me. I want Diego Lopes to win, but I kind of like Ilya too, but I want Diego Lopes to kind of do good, so when he's on the mic, he'll kind of like be like, oh, I want to thank that guy I saw at the Vancouver event. He's my first fan. Like, you know what I mean? I want him to shout me out. But for real though, all jokes aside, Diego Lopes is gonna win this fight. He's just too aggressive. He does everything Brian Ortega does, but better, and he has better striking. And Ortega doesn't really do very well when you have a really aggressive fighter that just comes up to you 24/7 and just pushes you on the cage. Not really pushes you physically, but just you're always playing back foot. He's just not really that good while doing that. We saw what happened with Volk. We saw what happened with Holloway. Ortega just doesn't really do well when it comes to these brawls. It has to be exchanges on the ground for him to find an advantage. But even exchanges on the ground, I just think Diego Lopes is still better. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Diego Lopes. We move on to the next one. The main event, Alex Pereira versus Jiri Prochazka. I'm going to pick Alex Pereira to knock out Jiri Prochazka in the second round, same way as before, but this time is not going to be an early stoppage. I know that Jiri looked better in the first fight. He looked kind of good in the first fight. He caught Alex a couple of times, and as an Alex fan, as a Pereira fan, I'm gonna be honest, Pereira had nothing really to show in the first fight besides some leg kicks. He never really landed his like shots that clean. I don't know why. Maybe because Prochazka is like really awkward to fight with, but he never really landed any clean shot up until he was back against the cage and Jiri found confidence. Jiri was playing kind of safe until he was really poking Pereira hard in the second round and getting him hurt a lot. But I think this fight Jiri is gonna come even more wild, and I think Pereira has been more skilled. You can say that he's been in the UFC for like a long time. He's been in MMA for a while now. His record is like 10-2. That's an average like fighter's record. And I think Alex Pereira has more experience now. I think Pereira's just gonna beat Prochazka because I think when these two match up together, he's gonna beat him like 7 to 8 times out of 10 times, and all by knockout. This is just Jiri's ultimate kryptonite. I love Jiri too, honestly. Like, Jiri's one of my favorite fighters. That's the problem with these type of fight, because one of your favorite fighters is just gonna end up getting knocked out. I'm gonna go with Pereira by second round knockout, just like I said earlier. What's Jiri's biggest issue? He can't check leg kicks. Who has the best leg kick? It's not Jan Blachowicz, it's Alex. Who has the biggest knockout power in that division? Is Alex. Jiri doesn't dodge his head. He can't defend any shots. He can try to, but when the adrenaline hit, he's gonna go to his nature instinct. Is he gonna do anything on the ground? I don't think so. I actually think Alex has a pretty good ground game. I mean, not really ground game in general, but just takedown defenses and stuff. Alex Pereira's takedown defense has been pretty good. Like, we've seen in both times where there's times where Jiri could have hurted. Like, there's situations where Jiri hurted Glover really bad on the ground, but he inflicted no damage to Alex on the ground. He's pretty much just pinging Alex there, and they're not really doing anything the whole time. We look at the same with Young. Young had a pretty hard time trying to submit him other than that first round, and Alex defended really well in the first round. Alex just has a really good wrist control, and he just slowly, he's very patient with the ground game too. He slowly moves up. most of the time, if you see his opponent that tries to take him down, what do they have in common? They gas the fuck out in the second round. His first UFC fight, the guy tried to take him down. Bro gassed out right away. Second fight is Bueno Silva, gassed out. Izzy get him on the ground. Izzy was pretty much gassed out in round 5. I think Alex Pereira has a pretty good ground game defense. There's nothing really Jiri can do but hit him with a surprise shot. But I think someone like Pereira's, like the experience he have, I think he's just too experienced. He's too mature for it. He's not gonna fall for these shots that Alexander Rakic fell. He's not gonna fall for these shots that Jiri hit with Dominic Reyes. I know a lot of people is picking Jiri in this fight just because Jiri did very good in the first fight, but you guys gotta think about this. Alex Pereira wasn't really a full-grown light heavyweight in the first time they met each other. He had his debut 3 months after getting knocked out. He had his debut last year in July at light heavyweight against Jan. And then, I think it was November, he had his title fight. So, pretty much his light heavyweight experience last year was only around 6 to 7 months. And he couldn't have really adjusted his body to a light heavyweight. We know Jiri is kind of small, but now I'm just saying I think Alex is at his true form at light heavyweight. This is going to be his peak form. He's getting a little bit older, but at the same time, he's Alex Pereira. I'm pretty much looking at Pereira as a like Yoel Romero, where it's just gonna age like fine wine. I got Pereira knocking Jiri out, and if Pereira's able to do that, Pereira's gotta be one of the greatest of all time at light heavyweight, at least, just because it's been conquered by Jones for so long. I'm gonna put Jones at 1. If Pereira wins, I'm gonna put him at 3. I think he still has a little bit to prove. He has to beat DC. But if he gets that heavyweight title too, I think he might just be one of the greatest of all time. Just gonna put it there. I think, if not the greatest, definitely top 3. He's 3 division champions with 2 losses. If Jiri wins, I'll still be happy because I love Jiri. He's my boy. But I'll be pretty sad and pretty depressed for Alex. Just kind of like the Oliveira days where I stay at home for like 4 days without going out when Islam beat him. It was like so depressing. That's gonna be my prediction. Thank you guys for watching. Leave down a comment about what you guys think and who's gonna win.